Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Way She Was Made Soul Sync Sessions. This morning, I am very excited to be able to talk to Meli. She's actually locally here in Savannah, and we connected, I think, over a Facebook group. And she does amazing things with helping women with integrative nutrition and just supporting them holistically from that space. So I'm super excited to dive in and give you all some resources and introduce her and her business and her story. So, Meli, I would love for you to share a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. First of all, you invited me in the moment where I decided that I only wanted to connect with people that we support and lift each other. And it was so magical once you put yourself into that mindset and just align yourself with that energy. Things start happening and random things start happening. And one of them is your message inviting me to the podcast. So I truly appreciate you inviting me this way.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It is interesting how once you kind of make that decision and you're like, no, I'm only going in this direction. And then the universe is like, okay, here you go. You've decided.
Absolutely. And I know that you asked like what do I do and like who am I? And so in essence, I call myself an integrative health practitioner where I blend nervous system regulation. I blend movement. I also blend a little bit of like dance and dance fitness, but it can also be somatics. And my board certification is in nutrition. So I blend all those things into one to help regulate nervous systems, which is my passion.
I love that. And I think a lot of times in traditional society nowadays, we kind of pocket those things where it's like, okay, we have a nutritionist, we have our personal trainer, we've got these other things, but our body works as a system. So if you're looking at one of those things and not looking at the other thing, it can actually wreak havoc on your system. So I love that you're blending all of those things. How did you decide to be like, okay, I'm not just doing one of these things, I'm going to blend them all together?
Yeah, it's been a wild story. My dad passed when I was 11, and when I was that young, the first intervention that happens is, of course, go to a therapist and go and talk to a psychologist and just kind of process your feelings. But I realized that I was not processing my feelings like that. I was processing my feelings more, closing my door and listening to music and moving my body. And I would just dance solo for hours and hours. Like, I don't think anybody knew that until somebody saw it when I was 16 and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm just dancing here by myself." Um, but on top of that, I was at that time suffering a lot from panic attacks. And I come from South America where or I feel like there was not much information, anyways, in the world about panic attacks at that time. And so there was
Mhm.
no protocols. They were just kind of like, well, you cope with it. So it was a hard journey, to be honest, until I found here in the US early in my, I would say like 19 or 20s at that point. So I've been suffering from panic attacks for 8 years. And then this functional medicine practitioner, which he was actually an intern in the clinic, said to me, let's just support your neurotransmitters. And I'm like, what? You can do that? But how? And he recommended me nutrition, he recommended me supplementation, and he recommended me movement. He said, whatever you do, just keep moving, just keep exercising, whatever it is. It wasn't even like, you need to do this many reps and you need to do specifically this, how specific we get into our exercise lately. It wasn't like that. It's just move and enjoy it. So, you know, he told me also that it was going to be a longer route going this way. And for 6 months, I went that route. It was not easy. I was still really sad, depressed, all the things. But then I started feeling that something shifted. And that is like my inspiration of what I do right now, because I know that the healing journey is not a linear one, is like all over the place and so many little items that you have to do. And I feel like I'm that person that when somebody comes to me, I kind of organize those little items and say, okay, this is what we're going to focus first, and this is what's second. So I'm able to see the big picture instead of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to therapy, but I'm going to cold plunge and I'm going to red light. And so people are doing all these things instead of like creating a system. So I guess I call myself like more like a systems person and see step one, this is where we start. So yeah, this is how I started doing what I do.
I love that. And I love how a lot of times, when we're going through something hard with my journey too. So I saw a functional doctor and that kind of kickstarted me into the holistic world because I burnt myself out doing weddings and I was doing the same thing where it was like, okay, I'm checking the box. I did my workout. I would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, do a workout, not eat first. And I was just breaking my body down, even though I was doing the things that I thought I should do. And my hormones completely just bottomed out by the time I was 27. And
Yeah.
so I just got tired of doctors telling me like, oh, it's fine, it's normal, and all of this stuff. And then I saw a functional doctor. I listened to his podcast actually, and I was like, he understands what I'm talking about. I need to talk to this guy. And so he helped me with supplements and nutrition and all these things. And it isn't a quick, easy fix. It took me probably 2 years of the supplementation and nutrition and like healing my gut and healing all of these different things within my body before I saw those results. And a lot of times in society, we're looking for that quick fix of like, let me just take this one thing and I'll be better in a couple days. And that's, ultimately I broke my hormones over the course of 27 years. It's not going to just reset in a day. So I love that you mentioned that it isn't a linear journey and that you are creating a system where it is the root cause. Because something that's interesting that I don't know if you resonate with this, but it's come up for me recently to my awareness that a lot of the things that we're doing as wellness are just surface level. So it's like, oh, I'm checking a box, I'm doing this workout, but we don't really know, like, is that what I should be doing? Am I going too hard? Especially as women, if we're not working with our cycles or we're joining a pickleball team or we're doing golf or we're doing these things, but it's like it's more transactional versus like actually looking at the root cause. So is that something that you see sometimes as well?
Oh, all the time. Like anybody that sits down in front of me, especially if they're in their early 20s, they are like, well, Melly, let's have a conversation. I saw this on TikTok or I saw this on Instagram. And it's so wild. I actually saw a post the other day from a nutritionist, a dietitian, and she said, this is the hardest times to be a practitioner because there is so much information out there that we need to debunk. And what people don't understand, let's just put something as simple as weight loss. What works for you doesn't work for me. The thing is, like, when you change your body, whatever it is, you call it paleo, keto, plant-based, or however you call it, if you do something for 8 weeks periods, you're changing something that your body's not used to. So yeah, your body will react and maybe it goes positive and maybe it goes negative. That doesn't mean that for the long term that's going to be beneficial for you. So when people just simply have like that quick, oh, it reacted, is working, they think it's good, but there's so many things out there, including cold plunging, that is a trend, that is a wellness trend. And Dr. Stacy Sims, which is a physiologist and is all about female wellness, has done studies that females, we don't thrive in those low temperatures. So everybody's doing this cold plunges and everybody's thinking that, ooh, this is the new trend, the new wellness, and yet you're putting your body into chronic stress and trauma. So
Yeah.
it's insane the amount of information. That's why I call myself more like the systems person. Yeah, I'm a practitioner, but I feel that I'm the organizer of people's lives and wellness in a way than anything. Just clear information out.
Yeah, and a lot of it is unlearning, or we're hit with so much information, like you said, on TikTok, on Instagram, on all of these things. And people are just grasping at like, oh, let me try this, without taking a step back or doing a functional test or doing something. And they're doing it with the right intention, but it's like you don't have that foundation in order to know that that's the right thing for you. And yeah, and it's also interesting because everybody is bio individual. So like you said, what works for me won't work for you. And as women, there hasn't been a lot of studies specifically on like our nutrition up until probably recently because it's been too hard because we have cycles and like there's a whole bunch of things out there where it's like they've been studied on men and it affects men, but our cycles affect everything. So like even our nutrition from a cycle syncing perspective, like I know in the luteal phase, you need more calories than you do in the beginning, like during your period and different things like that. You also need different nutrients during those times. So if you're completely ignoring that, you're ignoring the foundation of what your body actually needs. Or like you said, the cold plunge puts your body into stress. That's kind of what I was doing, where working out is a good stress, but it's still a stress on your body. So if your body has all of these other things, you're just continuing to break it down and your body can't rebuild when you are in that state of stress.
Yeah, and let's take it even further, right? Because this is where my studies are going to start becoming a little more deeper into what I'm doing. I'm pursuing my doctorates in integrative health, and I want to dive into bodies that have experienced either chronic stress, like an athlete, right? Like you have experienced a lot of chronic stress or trauma, adverse childhood situations, or even as an adult. And I feel that the word trauma, people sometimes think, oh, no, I had a great life. And when you start diving in, and I'm like, there's a lot of trauma here. So, on top of that, you already have a really low baseline in regards of like stress levels for your body. And normally, trauma individuals or trauma that people that have experienced trauma in their life, their nervous system is so dysregulated that they are, doing restrictive diets. They tend to go more into the high intensity workouts because it's easy for the mind. So all that just piles up and piles up. So we're restricting our intake. Our body, our hormones are like, I'm depleted. We haven't even recovered from this experience because we continue looping this experience until we really somatically release it. And then on top of that, you're exercising. On top of that, some people have families and kids and they're on the go and they have jobs that are really stressful. So what we're seeing or what I see is like a nervous breakdown that happens in your, mid 30s, like 40s, let alone in the 45s, entering in the menopause years is going to be even huge, that transition. So I am the person that I'm like, let's prevent all that crash before it begins. Um, but yeah, we're doing so much to our nervous system. It's insane, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think that we don't necessarily see that like, or connect that all of these things are connected because I saw that too, where I wasn't really thinking that, cortisol is a hormone and these different things, but cortisol and stress and all these different chemicals that are running through your body are all affecting, and it is a compound effect. So again, we're just checking the boxes and not checking in with our bodies. It's kind of like, yep, I did that. I did my workout today. I did or like you said, with the restricting, like I know I have friends and family members that are like, well, I'm eating less, so I should be losing weight, but your body is gaining weight because it's tacking on, like it's not, we need to come back into our bodies and understand what our bodies actually need for sure.
Yeah, I feel so sad and bad. And I think just like as a young person that experienced trauma, right, at 11, and you don't have this knowledge, I remember me restricting food, not because I wanted to restrict food, but because when a stressor happens in the physical body, your systems shut down. And for me, my digestive tract shut down. It's almost like it got contracted, right? Like it just didn't want to like eat anything. And the only thing that I was able to eat were soups or stews or, maybe liquid diet. And those are the moments where we need to, hopefully, there's a community around you that is able to support you and maybe feed you if you have parents, right? Like if you're a young person. But as an individual, when you go into like an adverse situation or a trauma experience, just reminding yourself, just give yourself grace and just help your physical body survive is going to be the most important one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see a lot of people in weight loss programming that they are in 900 calories. And I had one client that told me that she wasn't seeing any changes, so she went to 500 calories. And I'm like,
You're going
maybe
the wrong
that's
way.
not the way. It's the other way that we need to go. And she didn't trust me. I told her that we need to eat 2200, and she just didn't trust me. And
Mhm.
it's really hard to work sometimes with those kind of mindsets, but it is possible. It's a long way to go from 500 to 2200.
Yeah, and you can't just immediately jump from one to the other. And I think, we've been taught there's been 90s, early 2000s, and continuing on, there's all these fad diets where it's like the 100-calorie pack snacks and like all of these different things. And they've tried to make it so easy for you to kind of fit into that bucket or be calorie restrictive or take the fats out or like the keto and like all of these different things. And I think that there's certain places for some of these things, but if you don't understand what your body is actually craving for or understand how to read the signals that your body has, that it's giving you, then you are essentially could cause more damage. And we're not educated on those things. We're not educated on the cycle. We're not educated on what your body's actually telling you. And you mentioned the mindset too. And I'm all about like mind, body, and soul and kind of integrating all of that. So, like you said, there's trauma in there. What stresses do you have during the day? How can we nourish your body? Because those foods, when you do go into a trauma response, you need the nourishment versus just kind of trying to over logicize it and make it too logical. And you have to have that somatic work too, um, just to nourish yourself and even give yourself self-care, actual self-care. Because I've done that too, where I'm doing self-care. I'm like, yeah, I went to the chiropractor and I'm doing my workouts. And my doctor's like, Sam, you're keeping yourself alive, not actually just self-care. Like, how can we push this to the next level?
Yeah, we need to, like you said and mentioned, we need to step back and really
Yeah.
reassess and look at our lives. And maybe it is the world of social media that it is this instant gratification, or maybe it's the world of Amazon, right? Like tomorrow we have this by now. And that's what when I see people specifically in weight loss, and that's why you see so many now medications coming out that it gives like a quick result. But
Mhm.
are we truly solving the problem? I was one of those people too that I wanted to lose weight really quickly because I was in the fitness industry and I need to look a certain way. I get it, but I did more damage into my body. I did more damage metabolically. My hormones start getting impacted, my thyroid start getting impacted. And when I saw all that, I had two choices. I can continue doing what I was doing, or I truly said to myself, Melly, this year is going to be loving you and dedicating time for you. And what does Melly want? Like, do I wake up and I feel that my nervous system is so dysregulated that I cannot go and push in the gym? Okay, I still will go to the gym, but I will do more technique, or I will just do some walks, or I will need to do more somatic work. Yoga is part of it. I did a whole year of yoga. I'm not a yoga person, but I said to myself, if this is what I need for my fascia and maybe just to kind of slow me down, this is what I do. And so tending yourself and giving yourself some self-love, I think that we're missing the mark there.
Yeah. I totally agree. And just kind of, again, like you said, just what does my body need? Or as women, I think we get, well, everybody, but I think women in particular, we kind of take on the needs or the emotions of other people a lot and everything that's going on around us, and we're trying to hold it together. And we don't often, we sometimes get disconnected from what do we actually want or what do we actually need. So kind of understanding, I had this conversation with a couple of my friends recently of like, what do you desire? What is that actual desire or that root of doing that? And giving yourself what you need and giving yourself redefining self-love and self-care and movement for your body. Like you said, it goes back to there has to be joy in it, and you have to kind of, it's meant to make you feel good. So if you're pushing yourself too hard and you don't feel good afterwards, that's a sign that you need to kind of change it up and do something different, dance around or do some stretching or get a massage.
Yeah. And you mentioned something very important that I cannot miss, which is the disconnection of the body.
Yeah.
And the more I have learned about stress and the nervous system and also trauma, is that there is a mechanism that happens in our brains when we go into full on stress, that we just disconnect from our bodies. There's an exercise that I encourage anybody that is listening to do is interoception, which is you can close your eyes and set a timer. Of course, you have to set a timer, but that doesn't sound, you just set a timer that doesn't have the ticking. But feel how many heartbeats in that minute. And that can tell you, and then you can compare, right? You can touch your wrist or you can touch your by your neck and see how many really heartbeats you have in that minute. But it can tell you how far disconnected we are from our physical bodies. And when bodies are disconnected, they just don't perceive, they just start feeling, okay, I'm getting sick, but they don't realize, oh, maybe this stress is affecting me. I found myself in an emergency room because I thought, I was pushing, I was healthy. Everybody's like, how do you do all these things, Melly? Like you're running around from here to there, and like you're traveling and you're doing these projects. And then all of a sudden my body just gave up. And the funny part is like I was still in the emergency room and I was fine, you know? I was like, "This is," they took my blood pressure, everything was fine, but I know I was going through so much stress that my physical body didn't know where to release it, so it started to shake. It was just like this release of nervous system dysregulation completely. And one nurse told me, you should definitely check on those hormones. And I was still, just because I'm like, I know it all, not at all, everything is fine. And then I did check on my hormones, and there was a lot of like antibodies that were really high. But it's just amazing those lessons that I don't wish anybody to go through those. And the disconnection, it's like I see it more and more, the way we even talk to each other, the way we are, relate with each other, the way we don't feel our emotions anymore. So stepping back for a moment and connecting with ourselves, I think has been like a game changer for everything that I do, from nutrition to exercise and movement. You have to start being connected with your body.
Yeah, and I think it's so true because your body is always communicating with everything within you. It's communicating to your mind, it's communicating what it needs, whether that's nutrition, whether it's movement, whether it's rest. And we just keep going of like, oh, I have to keep going, I have to keep doing this. And we get stuck in that loop so often, and it puts us into the fight or flight. So I love that exercise that you mentioned where you can just, it's 1 minute. You have a minute to sit and just breathe for a minute and check in with yourself. And I think coming back to your breath too, going back to yoga, that's a tool that we always have too, to be able to kind of regulate, to get to a place where we can check in with our bodies. And like that book, The Body Keeps Score and all of that, your body really does retain all of those traumas or the things that sometimes our mind doesn't even remember. So coming back into that and really having that connection of or I've seen like exercises where it's like, okay, what is my left toe feeling like, my left big toe, or kind of checking in and doing a body scan to just come back into your body because we don't do that enough.
Yeah, and I love coming from fitness, and I come from fitness, where it was really hardcore, where it's step aerobics and cycling and like just go hard, go home kind of mentality. And seeing fitness evolve has been wonderful. Seeing younger generations come and be doing more soft movements and more nervous system regulation and have these conversations has been incredible. And that's why, your first question was why not one thing, like just specifically one is impossible.
Mhm.
Wellness and health for me has to be all the pieces. And I think that I have enough experience in all the pieces to be able to put it together for a person instead of just nutrition. I did just nutrition and it did not solve how I
Mhm.
was disconnected from my body. Then I did all somatics and the healing arts too, and that did not solve the imbalances that I have as a panic attack, you know? So, and then the mindset, how do you wake up every morning and still be a little bit at war with yourself because things are still not solving or things are still not feeling the right way? Or can you actually show up to work? That's a hard one, right? When you're in such levels of fatigue, how do you show up? We also live in a society we has zero PTO for mental wellness. And how can you continue showing up in that mindset and the strength that you have to find internally in that spiritual strength to continue life? So all the pieces is what makes us whole, I guess.
Yeah, and we are, hold on, I'm gonna pause for just a second. I'm gonna put my dog away because he's barking.
Oh, you cannot hear it though.
Oh, you can't? That's so interesting. Okay. Well, then I'll just keep talking. I'll just cut this little piece out. But I think that it's amazing to take a step back and look at your system as a whole, because in pharma, in medicine, traditionally, like what we have, it does look at, you go to your primary doctor for one thing, you go to a gastro doctor for another thing, you go to a heart doctor, and they're not looking at all of the different connections. So that's for me what pushed me into the holistic space, and it changed my life from a functional medicine perspective of like, oh, this is how your body's actually functioning. This is how it is made to work. And you're taught then to come back, I guess, into sovereignty within your body too, as a tool of like, okay, I am dysregulated going into work. How can I use my commute to just breathe or reset my nervous system? Or how can I maybe add some movement into my day and stand up in the middle of the day? Or how can I, as a whole, blend this? And if you don't look at your lifestyle, if you don't look at your nutrition, all of those pieces kind of compile together. So it's really a lot about the mindfulness, but then just adding in those little aligned actions throughout the day too, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish, sometimes I also want to be that person that says, ah, doctors and pharma, but is the system that has trained them, they, I cannot imagine. I see one of my favorite doctors and she sees people every 15 minutes. My sessions are 90 minutes the first one and 1 hour the follow-ups. I cannot imagine reassessing, diagnosing, and just trying to go with your life. I cannot imagine seeing 30 people a day. How draining that is, and who's taking care of these individuals? And I know that there are people out there, doctors that understand the big picture, but also the system itself doesn't allow it to be complete. And also, there is part of the society, for example, that when I say something and I'm a certified nutritionist, which is a board license, is a big board license, and then I say something to a person, they're like, oh no, my doctor told me this, and this is the medication. And so we also are in a society where people just see the doctor as the god instead of really trusting all the systems to put in place. Like we have exercise, we have nutrition in place. We should have more education, of course, in health and wellness. We should have more accessibility of healthy eating. But if only we can just work of all the systems that we have in the community,
Yeah.
like life will be amazing. And use the doctor as, oh my gosh, there's an emergency going on, or we need to perform a surgery, or because I think that they're so overworked for something that we can solve it here. Like you and I can be those little minions in the community working with wellness while whenever a person is sick or is going through a cancer or some more bigger issues, then the doctors can actually dedicate time for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that there's a perception, like if you look at a scale, I think because I got certified as a holistic health coach, which just to understand what was happening with my body as I was going through the functional medicine journey. So I understand these different pieces. And I think in one of those classes, it was showing the scale of actual wellness. And it's like, really, we're kind of like on the lower ends because we're like, it's not that our body's not functioning, but we are definitely not in the wellness perspective of functioning optimally because we have such a chronic condition epidemic that's happening. And we're just told that it's normal or it's stress or it is this or that. But you're right, it is like, the way the system is set up, the doctors are so overworked and they have to see so many patients each day. There's no way that they could be so in depth like in any of those sessions. So it is not set up for success for the client or the doctor in any of those perspectives or set up for ideal wellness. So I love that there is kind of like an uprising of people that are like, no, we need to look at these things as far as nutrition and lifestyle and come together and really even just create a circle of support where there is the nutritionist, there are the functional doctors, there are personal trainers and the coaches, and there's different things where you can help to be connected into that circle where we can support one another and build an ecosystem because that's what's really gonna create the change. And I don't know if for you, I was talking to one of my potential clients last week, and I was talking to her about cycle syncing and just kind of educating her on that. And I shared my journey, and she was like, "Well, I think it's really interesting because, you could have just taken all of this information, you went to the doctor, but instead you're now coaching women how to use this within their life and business. Like, what made you want to share it?" And I was like, well, the journey that I went on and seeing the difference that it made in just those 2 years or implementing these little lifestyle shifts that you can do throughout your day, I couldn't not share it. So I feel like it's kind of the same thing for you where you lived through these different things and you're like, no, I have to share this because it is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things for me, like you, it seems that you want to support a lot of women. Same for me. I remember getting my period at fourth grade, and you are now what? And there is zero information how to be a girl. There's zero information how to deal with your hormones. There's zero information of the emotional turmoil that we feel every single week. And one of my passions, and I love performance nutrition, one of my passions have been supporting female athletes. And it had to do with like the whole cycle syncing, but also how do you train as a female athlete with your hormones. And I've done a few on-demand materials for my board certification, educating the practitioners about it. But it's so interesting how if you take the time as a coach and implement, okay, Samantha, it's not that you're gonna, if you have a team of 20, you have to exactly know, but there are softwares that you can put, everybody enters their information, and the coach or the athletic trainer can see, okay, Samantha, you might not be in your optimal space. Let's not push you really crazy because it will cause an injury. So taking that time and care, I think what we're finding out in this conversation today together is we just need to slow down, and we just need to take a moment to just take in the medical field, take the care to transition a person if it goes to your emergency room, and as a doctor, hey, this could be an emotional attack, a panic attack, or whatever. Here are some numbers, here are some people that can help you, not immediately go, here's a medicine, let's go. Same thing with a female athlete. Just take the time to learn your athletes. I mean, you should love the game, you should love your athletes. And you, as a person individually, take the time to know yourself. I feel that we don't take enough time to learn about ourselves because what is going to drive you to the edge might not drive me to my edge. But we don't know. We don't know ourselves. We're just continuing following social media, Instagram, what my friend told me, this is good for me. My mom sends me messages every day. She's like, this is what I see on Instagram. Is this good for me? And I'm like, no, mom, that's not good for you. So yeah.
Yeah. My mom does the same thing. She's just like, well, I started taking these little gummy vitamins. What about this? And I'm like, no, this is not going to fix anything. What are we doing? So, and it is sometimes it might be more upfront or it might not be as logical, but it's like, okay, just take this test, it's like a functional test to see a full panel of where am I actually at or what are my levels doing? Because I learned too when it comes to hormones that can push you down a cancer pathway. There's like hormone replacement therapy and there's different things. And if you're pushing down one pathway versus supporting your body where it actually needs it or getting to the root cause of that, you can eventually damage your body by trying to do the right thing, but we don't know. And it is a lot about education because I too got my period when I was 10 and I was in about fourth grade. And we're taught in health class in middle school, like, oh yeah, your cycle is your period and you're going to get it once a month and it's going to suck and you're going to have to do it for 30 years. And then your life is basically over when you hit menopause. And I'm like, no, like, why did I learn in my 20s? I'm like, your cycle controls everything, but it can really be your superpower. Like you said, even for athletes, like you're at your optimal prime during like these 2 weeks. Let's put you into the game and push you here where you can actually excel. And I was talking to another girl recently. I did a workshop on cycle syncing, and she was just like, well, I'm training for a marathon. So what do you think about like pushing myself during this time? And I was just like, no, if it's during your menstrual phase, walk. And she's like, well, that's not running. Like it's counterproductive for me to do that. And I'm like, no, your body will be able to recover then so that you can push harder then. So it's just educating and kind of understanding rest is valuable and it's needed and it's allowing your body to recharge and we do have to follow that.
Yeah, and informed decisions, like you mentioned, functional testing. I know functional testing. These are the thing. I have battles with functional testing because I want everybody to do a cortisol test, right? I want everybody to do a Dutch test, which is the hormones. I want everybody to do a gut test.
Yeah.
And the pricing right now is the battle, the pricing of how much those functional tests are. But sometimes it has solved a lot of issues for a lot of people. So here's what when people come to me and say, hey, yeah, this functional test might cost me 300, 400, I don't know, right? One of the
Mhm.
reasons why I was able to overcome panic attacks was because I did a neurotransmitter test to see where my serotonin and dopamine was. And that's how we went into intervention with supplementation, because it was a chemical imbalance that I had, right? The same thing when people come with symptoms, and I can read a lot with regular labs. I can see, thyroid, are we going inflammation? Do you have an autoimmune condition? Are autoimmune markers happening? Or a test that nobody does that is the cheapest one is fasted insulin. And fasted insulin is going to help us better to understand metabolic syndrome. So people normally get their glucose only or the A1C. But in the functional realm, for example, the trend, and you probably heard this trend, right? Everybody is estrogen high. Like everybody's estrogen high, but I'm like, are you really? And so a lot of practitioners are treating everybody like they have their estrogen super hot. And unless you do a dry urine test, you don't know exactly where your estrogen and your progesterone and where is like the rest of the rest of the hormones are. But it's so interesting that people spend thousands, because I don't know about you, but I did a little diagram of how much I've spent in personal training. So I spend in personal
Mhm.
training almost $1,000 a month. I spent in supplementation almost $500 a month. And then I did spend on functional testing. But if I were to calculate that a year, my personal trainer and all the supplements that I thought it was good for me, we spent
Right.
way more money in trying to figure things out that simply, hey, Melly, let's sit down, let's run some labs that, yeah, maybe they're 300, $400. Okay, but it's going to give us informed decisions of what supplement are we going to take, what kind of food, and what kind of movement do we need to do. And that to me is like the protocol, right? Just to really do informed decisions here.
I think that's exactly right. And it goes back to everybody's bio individual. And I was going to say the exact same thing. It's like, I see so many people that are like, oh, $40 for this supplement and $50 for this and, $100 for this. And we're throwing all of this stuff or the membership at the gym and they're just pushing themselves or not even using it sometimes. And it's like, look at where you're spending all of this. But if you were to just take that $300 or $400 and understand what you're doing and then have a plan that's going to work for you, you're going to save money in the long run. You're going to actually fix the problem and you're going to get there a lot faster. So it is just kind of perception of, yes, it's going to take a little bit longer to go that functional route, but you're going to ultimately see long-term results. And I think we're kind of coming into a space now where I see it, and I don't know if you do as well, but it's like that generational wealth that people were so focused on before is really kind of shifting now into generational health is really the generational wealth because we've had all of these years where we were breaking down our bodies and now we've come to a place where we see what's happening, and we're seeing a shift into more of the what is actual wellness, which some of it is the fad stuff where it's like we want to be well and we're kind of just throwing spaghetti at a wall, if you will, of the cold plunges and the red light and all of these things, but ultimately it is shifting in the right direction of focusing on health and kind of taking it back into our own hands versus having that doctor be the god at the top, because I agree that's something, we need to take the control back and understand what's happening with our bodies too.
Yeah, I really love the shift. I do think that the shift is coming with a lot. Of course, somebody told me this, you're gonna laugh. Meli, money is not made by planting broccoli. And I'm like, it's true. It's true. So a lot of the shift, it is coming with a lot of biohacking that I'm like, do you truly need it? Or it's coming with a lot of like this study and immediately the study and they create something for that. So, but at least the mindset is there. At least if I speak with somebody that is early 30s or below, and we're talking about mindset, we're talking about somatics, the conversation is there. When I have these conversations with a little bit of 40 plus, it's really weird, is unawareness 100%. I would say 45 plus. And even my battles when I dealt with 45 plus sometimes have been just as simple as don't drink as much, it's not good for your liver, and they don't
Yeah.
understand even the concept of like drinking and liver. So I love the shift. I am all in pro the shift. I think people like you that are having a podcast, people like me that are just spreading this message to, we're doing our little job, a little work of spreading the wellness in people, and hopefully everybody gets excited about discovering themselves a little bit more.
I love that. And yeah, I think that's the most important part is just rediscovering who am I, what, and having fun with it too, not just being so pressured of like I have to have all these things perfect, but just being curious and starting that conversation. So I love all of those things. And it's so, so important. So I'm so glad that you were here today. I'd love to hear and just share with the audience of how can people work with you or connect with you? I know that you're locally based here in Savannah. Do you take online clients or what does that look like?
Yeah, I take in-person clients, I take online clients. I have my clients, I come a bit from the West Coast, so a lot of clients come from the West Coast, but I'm open, I'm licensed to take my certification is a board certification, so I can take clients, especially in the medical nutrition therapy space, but I am here to support them in the functional space as well, or exercise if they just simply need a roadmap. They can contact me on melikirkwood.com. I'm also on Instagram at Meli Kirkwood. Everything is Meli Kirkwood. So just type Meli Kirkwood and his LinkedIn, Instagram, all the things Meli Kirkwood.
Amazing. I love that. And I'll put all of the links below so that everybody has it on YouTube and Spotify and Substack and all the places where it'll be. So this is amazing. Thank you so much for coming on here. And there's so much good information in here to get people started and just see that connection and get curious about their body and tapping into that functional space.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you for inviting me. And that's the only message I want to leave to the world is just be curious about you. You're unique and powerful, and just take the time to discover you. That's going to be the secret of your wellness.
I love that. That was the perfect note to end on. So thank you so much for being here.